All right, welcome back to the broadcast. This is Dennis Spurling. You guys, I hope everybody has had a great morning, noon, evening. Shout out to everybody in the UK. Big shout out to everybody in Australia. I know I got a lot of followers there. And the thing is, this is a very special night, a very special day, a very special afternoon, depending on where you are. But before we get started, I want everybody to type Judge Joe Brown in the chat room. We want to give a big shout out to Judge Joe Brown. Next up, hit the number 1 button for yourselves. Thank you for your participation. I appreciate everyone who takes the opportunity and the time to come in here and listen to these broadcasts. I think this one is going to be astounding. Why? Because, well, Judge Joe Brown's been here before, and that was one of the highest rated broadcasts that we had. What it lets me know is people really appreciate the wisdom and the intellect of some of these great minds that we've experienced. And if you don't know who Joe Brown is, that means you didn't grow up in America in the 1980s and 90s. You don't know what you're talking about, man. Judge Joe Brown was your grandma's favorite. She was your mama's favorite. She's the reason why half of y'all thought you wanted to go to law school and was going to and do well for yourself. So without further ado, man, I cannot wait but to go ahead and just get the judge back in. Judge Joe Brown, Your Honor, welcome back to the broadcast. It's always a pleasure to have you here, sir.
All right. Thank you for that greeting.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Everybody is doing fine.
All right. That's good. And I want to thank you, and everybody in my audience thanks you. Here's the thing, Judge. At this point, you're a rarity. A lot of black men, especially all men, we don't have masculine, intelligent, thoughtful, wise role models to look up to. A lot of the people that the media throws at us, a lot of the people that they want us to look up to, we just don't see eye to eye with them. And so to have you here, you're a true treasure. And so it's just an honor to have you here, yo. And I just want to say that and give you another hand clap. So, Judge, you were here. So much has happened in my personal life. As you know, my father passed away. And
my condolences.
Yes, Your Honor. And you sent a very warm, felt message to the family, and we appreciate that. They actually read it at the funeral. For those of you guys who don't know, the Honorable Judge Joe Brown attended law school with my father back at UCLA, back in Los Angeles, and so they knew each other from the campus. And it was just an honor to the family just to have you do that. But aside from that, Your Honor, I'd like to go ahead and just ask you some questions and your thoughts on things. Again, you know, it's one thing for them to hear it from me, but I want someone who really knows the world. You know, I'm a baby. You know, as I said, you went to school with my father, so you know they listen to me, but I like for them to listen to people that I look up to and I respect. So, Judge, without further ado, I just want to kind of ask you the current political climate. You know, there's so much going on right now. I mean, what are your thoughts generally on the direction of the country?
It's not a good direction. One thing, let's get to the chase, and this is one of those things people don't like to hear. There's been a 50-year period of glorification of dysfunction in our society, and we have gotten into trying to emasculate the place. That's not good, because masculine protocols are not toxic. They impose on the republic and on the community and on the men these standards that we feel great shame for deviating from, that we feel very personally embarrassed about not following up on or adhering to, and that's making where you live a better, safer, more secure place filled with economic prosperity, sense of purpose, morality, and ethics. Masculine men are men of public peace, dignity, and order who can be brave and courageous when necessary. We protect womanhood and promote manhood. We make it happen. And the contrary position is emotionalism, doing it because you feel like it. being all you can be rather than being all you should and ought to be. Now, we have to reimpose that, because one of the worst parts of this emasculation campaign is the violence out there on the streets, in the hood and the hallway. And we need to stop that. It's not manly to do what I see all the time these days. But I saw it developing when your father and I were out at UCLA. There was this group. Lesbians hated men. The feminists hated that they weren't men. The beta boys hated that they weren't strong men. And the gay crowd hated that they weren't normal men. Some things happened. They got together with another crowd that thought that war was a man thing. So the way to stop war was to stop raising boys like they had been for thousands of years and raise them like girls. Now, that just does not work. I'm sorry. You have responsibilities that are put on you because you have to interact with other people, and you have a duty to your community and your people and your country. And that means you have to do things that men are supposed to be doing. And if you don't like doing that, then under our system, you have a right to not do it, but you still punk out when you don't. And I'm not talking about just folk who are being gay. I'm talking about anti-masculine folk. There is a difference. So, want to get your freak on in your bedroom? Do so. But when you start trying to barge into other people's living rooms and recruit the children to the cause, that's not good.
So, Your Honor, recently the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, or really what they did was they sent it back to the states. And my analysis of that is they basically said that there is no right to privacy written into the Constitution. And if you just look at it, there is no necessarily a right to privacy. Now, some of the people on the left are screaming and hollering, "Oh my God, it's the end of the world." But as a Black American, I look at the fact that there have been over 21 million abortions of Black children since 1971, when Roe v. Wade came into play. And so I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing for it to be overturned. I mean, is that bad? Why is it bad when I say that? And why don't people understand my particular position? Because there's a lot of African Americans who feel the same way. And what are your thoughts? Because you were in law school when that fight was happening. What are your thoughts on it from a historical perspective?
Well, I think I was just out of law school when Roe v. Wade got decided. But
Yes,
here,
sir.
it's not outlawed. It's just not recognized as a national constitutional right. I am frankly more concerned with postnatal abortion.
Okay.
That's the drive-by, the drug overdose, the suicide by cop, suicide by neighbor. That's the death penalty. That's a lot of things along those lines. And the problem with that kind of postnatal abortion is that you've wasted a lot of money feeding and raising and clothing and sheltering somebody when it comes to that point.
Yes, right.
So it is what it is. And we have these periodic population reduction moments. We call them wars. We call them the carnage on the highway. And see, there's one thing about being in America. It's unique in all the world in what is reserved for the people of the country, your rights. Now, having those rights has collateral consequences, and a lot of people would rather be notationally safe and not have what it takes to be on the pathway to being a free people. I can understand that, but it's not a good thing, because when you depend on somebody or something else for your personal safety, you become subject to that something's control if they want to get out of hand. And we're seeing how the left is doing what they're doing to free speech, the Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, Fifth Amendment, right to remain silent, due process under the 14th. I mean, it's all kinds of negativity that we're seeing. And we should keep in mind that there was this thing called the National Socialist Workers' Party, and they wanted to get rid of these things too, and in their country they did. And the acronym for National Socialist Workers' Party is Nazi.
Oh, wow.
And I'm seeing some of the worst trends toward fascism that I've seen in a long time. Really.
Your Honor, do you think maybe that's why the Democrats are losing the black male vote, and why it seems as though they're losing even more of the Hispanic vote? And the reason I bring this up is because uh, the woman running, Miss Abrams, running for governor in Alabama, I'm sorry, Georgia, says, "Hey, I'll win if I get the black male vote." What that lets me know is that black men specifically are taking a look at this and saying, "Hey, this is not something I can sanction." And the same thing happened down here in Texas, where a traditionally Democratic uh, county flipped to Republican. Is that why people are beginning to walk away from what used to be the good guys, the folks with the white hats, i.e., the Democrats, and now they're going to the Republicans because they're embracing these conservative values because things are changing too fast? What are your thoughts on that? Why is this trend happening?
Well, it was inevitable. I don't think it was their intent to set it up this way, but with the Johnson administration safety net, it became a dependency trap. There's this old parable about you can feed a man a fish or teach him to fish so he can feed himself. And too many of us got caught in that thing of being fed and dependent on a government check of some sort. That's bad. As a temporary thing, it's needful, it's helpful, but we've had families that have been getting that same government check since your father and I were at UCLA, which is not a healthy thing, and they have not gotten off, and they've become generationally dependent on it, and they're slaves, because the slave served a function for the plantation owner or the slave system, and he was fed, and he got taken to the veterinarian, and he was kept reasonably healthy for whatever purposes were there. Now, what we tend to be is a voting bloc that puts people in power that are not interested in what we have an interest in, but they become surrogates for somebody else that is not good for us. See, we have depended upon the family, and we've had struggles to get it set up, and we've had all sorts of things we've done over the centuries to resist the destruction of our families. Now, we are the number one enemy to those families, in league with certain other people that think that having a traditional family is indeed a form of slavery for them. That is not healthy. So our interests are diametrically opposed to those who want to tear down the family.
Right, right.
And that means black men don't want a Stacey Abrams, because she's been doing a lot in her political career to destroy the traditional nuclear family. She's been doing a lot to eradicate masculinity. See, masculinity and manhood, they're not toxic, and they are not automatically achieved by acquisition of age and physical stature. They are titles that are earned, and some don't like that. But their way has been a failing way, and over the last 50 years that they have had their way, it's been a disaster.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, recently you were on a podcast, and this kind of goes into what we're talking about here. So I see black men and a lot of other folks going towards the Republican Party, and I believe it's a natural fit because they're more conservative values, and I think most black people are socially conservative. We love God, we love family, we don't want to pay a whole bunch of taxes, we want to keep the government out of our business. And so the thing that runs us away from the Republican Party, I think, is the idea that it is saturated with these racist people. Specifically, and I believe you addressed this in a podcast, and I'm gonna bring this up. A gentleman asked you this whether or not Trump was a racist, and I'm gonna let this clip play, and then you can kind of elaborate because I was shocked when you said it. All right. If you'll let me let the audience let you hear what you said, and then you can elaborate further. You guys make sure y'all type Judge Joe Brown in the chat room.
Trump a racist?
I don't think so. I've talked to a number of black entrepreneurs who back in the late 80s and 90s, early 90s, were trying to get financing. They couldn't. Somebody told them to go check with Donald Trump. So they come back and tell me they got a loan from Donald Trump. He gave them a term loan. Show up with the interest and the principal, one check. But they had to go see him personally. They independently relate this tale that when they saw him, he said, "This is what you supposed to pay me? This our agreement?" I said, "Yeah." And then tore the check up, shook their hands, and congratulations. Now run your business.
And this was when?
This was back in the 90s. See, most people don't even know this. He had a sister. He was, every time you saw.
So, Judge, that plus the fact that when I was a young boy growing up, every rapper that I know of worth anything either made a song referencing Donald Trump, had a photograph with Donald Trump, along with half of the boxers and the promoters. It wasn't until Donald Trump became a presidential contender that the left began to demonize him as a racist. If you will, Judge, please elaborate more as to that story, and perhaps maybe tell us why it is they would try to paint this man as a racist when you yourself can go ahead. Judge, we got to unmute you. You got to unmute yourself, Your Honor. I think you muted yourself.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Trump is a strong masculine man. Sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong, but he's masculine. That's unlike what we've had in the public eye for a long time. And he's a threat to a certain cult.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not down in gay folk. I'm down in this cult that some of them formed, known as LGBTQIA+, whatever,
Yes, Your Honor.
word salad, alphabet salad. And it's not good. It's like, I knew gay folks, still do, couldn't help but work 15 years in LA and Hollywood and not know some of them, but they tell me that a lot of gay folk are against LGBTQ. They think it's poison. And one of them put it this way, said, just because you are a Christian does not mean you supported Reverend Jim Jones and drinking Kool-Aid at large church picnics. Some may understand what that means, some not.
Right.
Or if you're Islamic, it doesn't mean that you support ISIS or Al-Qaeda. So that is something to consider. And what we have is the installation of a new religion as the official religion of the country. Now, when I say that, perhaps I should give a little explanation. we think of Christians, churches, Muslims and mosques, Jews and synagogues, or Hindus and temples, Buddhists and temples, and so forth. But Buddhism is a system of philosophy. There's not really a God to it. And if you take LGBTQ, that's what you get. It is a system and a philosophy. Now, you can't hang a cross under the American flag on a federal building or a state building or a consulate or an embassy. You can't have a six-pointed Jewish star flying under the American flag. You can't have a crescent and a star under the flag. You can't have a Buddha. You can't have the six-armed Hindu deity.
Yes, Your
But
Honor.
you can have a rainbow flag under the American flag, and it flies at every American embassy and consulate. You go to D.C. and the sidewalks are painted rainbow, crosswalks. You see a federal building with a 12-floor high banner. It's a rainbow flag. And you see it being taught officially in elementary schools, preschools, middle schools, junior highs, high schools. It's posted all in the official mantras of some states. And that is wrong, because the United States is supposed to guarantee that anyone can have whatever faith he wants to have, but it can't impose one. But they're trying to impose a certain one, and that one is anti-masculine.
Right.
It's also anti-family, and the family basically is the ultimate foundation block for humanity's social and cultural systems. I say it a lot of times, man, dude ain't got no home training, man. What's wrong with him? He needs home training, or she needs home training. So how are you going to have home training if you don't have a home?
Right.
And one of the things that I put right at the doorstep of this cult is this idea that somehow or another it's a form of slavery for women to be married.
Mhm.
And I've seen a situation where the overwhelming majority of Black folk were in a marriage and were being raised in a traditional home. Now it's a rarity. And it's gotten to be kind of crazy because what it's done to the masculine component of society. And I think there's going to be a bad backlash. What is being done? Well, for the last 20 years, it develops that 84% of all Americans of all ethnic groups who are 35 and under come out of a single parent head of household situation, not where it was a divorce, but where it started off that way. What is the result? Well, only 28% of each year's high school graduates are male. Only 32% of each year's college undergraduates at public universities and colleges are male. And for the same institutions, only 36% of that group for grad students is male, and only 44% of the workforce is male. So something is way wrong. We have had take your daughter to work week officially for the last 50 years, but we have never had to take your son to work week. You see, it's getting bad because the problem that when you get into a nice, nasty look at it is this. We are the apex predator on the planet Earth. And basically that means young male humans.
Mhm.
Young adult male humans. We kill anything we want to kill, and we kill it with alacrity. And like all other apex predators, we occasionally kill ourselves. Now, there is this socialization and acculturation that all higher order animals have. And what do we have to keep down the violence? It's called masculinity. It's not toxic. It is the control factor. We cause each other to feel shame and embarrassment when we deviate from the cultural standards of appropriateness. Or at least we did, but now you hear it all the time. One should never feel shame. Oh, how horrible. Guilt. Oh my God, no one should feel guilt. Yes, they should. Guilt is a good thing.
Yes.
Maybe some people have an overload of it, but most of them that do need to straighten up. So guilt is a control factor. So you take that away and you get extreme violence in the hood. You get extreme violence in the hallway. And when you look at the creeps that are doing it, they all tend to have the same flavor, or at least the same sauce has been added, and that's been they never did receive their dose of masculinity. And now we've got this flip the script nonsense coming out talking about it's toxic. And then we have, what is it now? Virgin Airlines, the flight personnel and the employees, they wear their personal pronoun badge. There's no such damn thing as a personal pronoun. That's ridiculous. It's he, she, or it. I'm a they. So what are we supposed to do? He is coming to school. So now we say they is coming to school. That's bad English.
Right. Yeah.
Or what are you? Are you? You strike me as being a little boy. Well, I have my own pronoun. Well, I don't know you. Don't want to know you. And the only way I'd be able to summon up your personal pronoun is if you were a big enough fool and your parents were a big enough fool to let you get it tattooed on your forehead. And then I don't give a damn about you anyway. I'm going to call you he. And if you don't like it, it's what you going to do about it.
You know, Your Honor, you strike me as you and my father are very similar in this regard. I don't know if you know, but he was raised down at Camp Pendleton on a Marine base.
Mm-hmm.
His father was a Marine who grew up in the deep South, segregated South, and you know, I got that. You know, I got the whoopings. I got the discipline. I got, if you do this, this is going to happen. I'm gonna explain why, but you're still going to get disciplined. These days, and I'm that way with my sons. I got 3 boys, and I'm very disciplined with them. I could see people saying, "Oh, you're a dinosaur. You're that old school stuff," but it works, you know. And I try to explain to people it's been working, it's working. And so when people hear what you're saying, because remember, Judge, and you know this better than I, because you sat up on the bench for years, a lot of these young men and women, they've never experienced a man, a real man, a masculine man telling them what the terms are going to be and what their boundaries are, and so they rebel against them. How do we deal with that?
Well, you could do what I did in my courtroom from 1990 to 2000 when they did this decade-long survey. The statewide recidivism rate in damn near every courtroom in the state was 80%. In my courtroom, it wasn't but 18, and it was dropping. Because I did what it was done by the Roman legions, by the U.S. Marine Corps, by healthy fathers and families throughout the world's history. And it works, but some don't want it to work because it requires that they ante up,
Right.
contribute to what needs to be done instead of just being off into what they want to do. Now, this whole thing about masculinity is interesting. It requires at base, if I can break it down to its raw essence, Titanic 2 is going down, and a man's got to say, ma'am, we don't have enough lifeboats, but you and your child have my seat. And that takes a lot of doing to get somebody to the point where they'll do that. But now what we're doing, oh, put on a dress, and oh, you want to switch and twitch and come up and I'm taking my seat, nobody's going to get it. No, yank him out of that seat and go throw him on the other side of the boat so you can chum the sharks and they'll stay over there and away from the women and children in the lifeboat first.
And what do you say to the men who say women only want chivalry and they only want feminism when it benefits them? They don't want it when they got it.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
But the point of it is, doesn't make any difference.
Mm-hmm.
You see, we are the gender that is charged with, through our human evolution, with being the strong ones, and it's our business to protect and provide. Now, that being the case, you know, I don't mind if they yak, but they can make it difficult on themselves, or they can follow on along and they can be happy, which brings up another interesting point. It's called developmental bipolarity. It's not out there heavily, but when I had this crew together that I put into place, psychologists and psychiatrists, to evaluate the people that I sentenced, and damn near everybody that I sentenced, I sent them through the evaluation process. They came up with this thing called developmental bipolarity. And what is that? Okay, ordinarily, a woman would be pleased by having certain things happen. Now, the feminists have told these women that that is demeaning. You shouldn't have a favorable reaction to these things.
Right.
This over here is what you should be feeling good about. When they get this over here, they get left cold. It doesn't do anything for them. When they feel this over here, that's traditional, and they get real mellow about it, they feel somehow or another ashamed for being demeaned for feeling like that. So you have something out of touch. Humans don't run around naked, but most animals, you can tell the boys from the girls by looking at them, or they smell different, or they're built differently, or they don't look the same. But now, you know, humans, we wear clothes because we don't have fur.
Right.
And the clothes are supposed to reflect what's underneath, but we have the little freakies running around. They don't want the clothes to reflect what's underneath. So you're throwing off a lot of things, one of which is boys and girls 101A and B is not being taught anywhere. And, you know, it used to be a guy walking down the street, he saw some moves over there and he's looking, the radar's on.
Right.
Wow, it's fine. Now you look straight ahead because it might be a boy.
Judge, you brought up a point, and I don't know if you how closely you follow what's going on YouTube, but recently Fox News had a let me say how what's the name of that show? You guys in the chat room, it's on Fox, but basically there's a lady on Fox who hosts this show, and she invited a person who was a man who is now dressed like a woman, and this person was not announced to the other folks. And basically you had this gentleman, I don't know if you're aware, it's called Fox Soul. It kind of caters to black folks, but they had this guy, his name is Dr. Umar Johnson. He's a psychologist, and you know, he kind of panders to women a little bit, calls them, you know, beautiful sister and this, that. So they had this man on here referring to this person as a sister, and telling him how beautiful he was, and didn't even tell him that this man was a man. Now the thing is, I like Dr. Umar Johnson. He's been masculine. He's never been funny style, if you know what I mean. And for them to do that to him on national TV, to me, it was almost like a public buck breaking thing. It was like his emasculation. You trying to make him look funny style. And it's like that was wrong. I mean,
Of course, it's wrong. See, you know, we used to be in caves. Now we're in condos, and something went certain ways to get us from cave to condo,
right.
and it just doesn't work like that. So you've got 250,000 years worth of anatomically modern human remains, and now somebody in 25, 30 years wants to undo the paradigm because they're not normal.
I mean, Judge, they set this man up on national TV. I was
Yeah, that's
offended.
wrong.
That was cold, man. You know, I mean, I just
like a friend of mine said, he said, Joe, I was sitting in the airport in Atlanta, man, and I saw the finest looking woman I'd ever seen, I thought. I finally got up enough nerve to go over and say something to what I thought was a her, and it turned out to be a boy.
oh man.
But you see, that is doing something very bad. I look at people your age and under, and you have a very hard time doing this thing that's necessary with the opposite sex if we want to continue the race to the next generations. Yeah. And it does no good when you encourage folk to corrupt the process, which is just what it is, because they are not normal. Now, these things, if my vision was normal, I wouldn't need these to read. You wouldn't need yours either.
Right.
So that's just the way things are. These folk are not normal because they don't have the normal pattern of interacting with the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Now, just like these glasses don't make us inferior persons, they just make us people who have abnormal vision because it's not 2020 and we can't read it. It doesn't cut down on our worth unless it's something like you need somebody on the lookout on a ship with keen eyesight, or a fighter pilot or something, or a race car driver. I mean, but that is a special niche that everybody doesn't fit into. But the bottom line is these folk want everybody to wear glasses to be like them, and they're trying to encourage the children to ruin their vision so they can't see either, and they can be just as abnormal. That's not right either.
Yeah.
So
Your Honor, I don't want to keep you here all night, but you know, with your powerful presence and having had the ear of the public for so long, like I have a group of lawyers that I'm working with on some class action cases, and they're like, oh, Joe Brown. I mean, these folks, they got jets, right? You know, they're flying around in jets and they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And they're like, oh, Joe Brown, I love Joe Brown. So it lets me know how valuable your voice is and how much of an impact you have had.
Our legal crew, just very briefly.
Yes, Your Honor, please. What were you saying, Your Honor? Go ahead.
It is not over yet, and you owe it to the people to take your expertise out there and make a difference with it for the people. And for those who are aspiring to be well off and get that Learjet, let me say this. It's your job to fight for your clients. I've been running into some that settle a lot of stuff, but learn the trial work and you'll really learn law.
Yes, Your
That's
Honor.
your apprenticeship and your internship, and fight for these clients when they are being systemically wrong. Don't just try to encourage them to go along with the game plan that's being imposed on them. Straighten up. You have a lot of power.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll definitely. My dad was telling me the same thing some years back, so I definitely will take that to heart. But what I wanted,
I'll tell you something you may not know. We had a gentleman named Bill that was a classmate of ours, well, a little in front of him. So some people who went to UCLA Law School talk about what the civil rights movement did to get them into law school. Well, no,
Mhm.
this particular individual, there was a dean named Murray Schwartz, and he had made an agreement to let in more black law students, and he tried to renege on that agreement. Now, I'm not saying I was there because,
Right.
I wouldn't do these things.
Mhm.
But let's just say that a certain person took his Colt Python, cocked it, put it to Murray Schwartz's head, and told him what he was going to do with him if he didn't sign that agreement, which he did. So a lot of black folk went through UCLA Law School, not because of civil rights demonstration, but because somebody said it's going to be. Now, the individual in question is now deceased.
Mhm.
He had a long career. He did a lot for the people. And that's the kind of thing you have to do. See,
That's
when you
right.
do the right thing, it gets dangerous. When I was the last judge on that James Earl Ray matter, and I was finding out that the FBI supplied the murder weapon and the ammunition
Mm.
and recruited the two snipers from Quantico Marine Base to assassinate King, that was dangerous for somebody to know. So they sent 5 people by my house, broke in, tried to kill me. It was a gunfight, 35 shots exchanged, and
Damn.
blood trails going front and back. And
Whew.
I didn't get shot, but my friend at the time, who was the director of police here in Memphis, and another friend who was a detective, came by at sunrise, and we went over it. And we found out that the dispatcher's tape and all of the recordations had been disabled 30 minutes before this and 45 minutes after. So it was interesting, and none of the obviously wounded folks showed up at a hospital.
Yeah, that's more than
But
interesting. Just
no,
interesting is
it's
a
like
understand. My
it's like
God.
see, when you do stuff to change things, it
Yeah.
is not taken well in certain areas. So when
Uh-huh.
I talk about manhood, it's you got to be serious about this.
Yeah. Judge,
See, yeah.
no. So you actually brought up something that I've been dealing with because I've been getting a lot of pushback, and I hadn't. Well, so let me bring this up. So I've been I've been hearing about reparations. Everybody wants reparations, right? And I've been
Mm-hmm.
hearing about it for 30 years. And I'm a civil litigation attorney, so I'm going to try to find a way. I'm not really into begging people who don't want to give me something. Is there some legal way to get it done? So last week, I actually discussed the act prohibiting the importation of slaves. It was something that went into effect in 1807, and I'll kind of bring this screen up for you to take a look at. And so basically, this act prohibits slavery after 1807,
Mm-hmm.
but
That's the Constitution,
Africans.
by the way. It's written
I'm
in the
sorry.
Constitution, by the way.
I'm
That
sorry.
is,
Say again, Your Honor.
I said that is written into the Constitution of the country about this 1807 cutoff on the importation of slaves.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. And then
And
the
that
body.
act further that I'm familiar with this. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. And so the body of the text of this law actually gives a $20,000 reward for those who catch people who are bringing slaves in after the fact. It just so happens that I actually had a young lady on the internet send to me a fact pattern, we'll call it, wherein she said, "Hey, my family was brought to Alabama. They can trace their heritage straight back to Ghana. The ship came in, and I believe it came in like 1820 or 1830." And so I'm saying theoretically, if you were going to sue somebody, right, you could sue those folks. And see, here's where I lose a lot of people. Basic corporations law says if you take over a corporation or you take over an entity, then you inherit the liability and the assets of that entity. So if a country takes over a kingdom, then that kingdom is those debts that kingdom owed, also that country owes. So even if countries like Ghana, Togo, Benin, Nigeria weren't around, those nations which took over those royal families, they have that debt. Now, again, I don't really care where the money comes from. I just want my client to recover. It doesn't matter if the defendant is the American government, some corporation out of England. It doesn't matter if it's an African corporate, a company, whatever, as long as my client is made whole. Now, I've been screaming to these folks on the internet, why you keep begging folks for money that they are not going to give you? You're going to have to eventually take it away from them. So find some legal avenue. So I looked at the 1807 Act. I look at the fact that they allow these Saudi Arabian, they allowed the country of Saudi Arabia to be sued after the 9/11 Act, where they got sued, which was Washington, D.C., which is where venue was proper. And so I said, well, we can put something like that together, and you can call it what you want to call it. But if you get reparations for for your ancestors being stolen after slavery became illegal, then that's a good start. Now, see, here's the thing, and Judge, you'll understand this. When I tried to explain to them, yeah, I know slavery was bad, but before 1807, it was legal. Not only that, it was legal in Africa, it was legal in the United States, it was legal all these different places. So the minute I file my petition, opposing counsel is going to file a 12B6 motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted, because it's not legal. It wasn't illegal at the time. But if you can find a niche and show, hey, everything after 1808 was illegal, I can show you these are my people. This is where they came from. Here are the receipts. Here's the bill of lading. Here's the transportation. It was illegally done. You might have a chance. Aside from the statute of limitations issues, which they did away with in certain instances as related to the Saudi Arabian lawsuits. Because remember, that happened, 9/11 happened almost 20 years ago. These suits just went forward about 4 or 5 years ago. So that's something that they can do away with in the legislature. That's my thought. It goes over.
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. Actually, I kind of looked into it because my great grandfather was a Yoruba district sub-chieftain, and he got brought over here in 1814, I think. After that, what he got for his relief is they ordered that he be set free. But guess what? He didn't get anything for it. He had to, over an extended time, pay the purchaser back the purchase price.
Mm-hmm.
But I get what you're saying. The problem is that essentially we don't count.
Well, Judge, we got to make ourselves count,
but
right?
Remember what I was saying earlier about they have the authority to come up with an enablement and appropriations bill right now. The Democratic Party does. They've had for some time, but they won't. So we don't punish them for not doing it, and we're still going to deliver our votes en masse, which provides them with the cushion and the ballast to do what they want to do, acting as somebody else's surrogate.
Yes, sure.
If we stop that, it might happen. But this is the third or so time in my lifetime where Black folk have gotten hotted up about reparations. I know my parents, they did it twice, and my grandparents, all of whom were born in the 19th, not 20th century, they were still clamoring for 40 acres and a mule as per General Sherman's January 1865 declaration. And they said, we don't even want the 40 acres and the damn army mule. Just give us the reasonable interest compounded semi-annually on, we'll take that.
The act to prohibit the importation of slavery of 1807 allows for $20,000 per incident. And if we calculate $20,000 from 1807, that's like $400,000 per incident per person, plus interest.
That act, if I remember it correctly, does not give it to the victim. It's a bounty on people apprehending or breaking up the persons that are being the bad guys during
Mhm.
the enslavement and the importation.
So
Where
I
the
read
money
the statute. Oh,
you know where
I
the money
apologize.
actually went, and this might help your research out because you
Mhm.
might find something in it, is it went to members as prize money
Okay.
in the Navy for capturing prizes, meaning slave ships. And a lot of it got split with the crews as the bounty that they got for participating in these things. That was an old naval tradition. So
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
might want to look up prize courts that dealt with seizures of slave vessels
I
and what they got under that act and see if you can find something there.
I looked at the actual black letter law of the act, and there is a part in it, and this is so you got eight. I'll pull it up for you to take a look at.
No,
And
that's not what I'm saying. What I'm
okay.
saying, there were actually some payouts under that act, but
Mhm.
mostly they went to the crews of U.S. Navy vessels who
Mhm.
participated in running down slave ships and busting this up. Since you got a connection with the Marine Corps,
Mhm.
the Marines had a part in that too, and some of the privates and corporals and sergeants got some recoveries under this act here. There's a $20,000 bounty, so to speak. And what I'm suggesting to you is go look into the maritime court records
Okay. All right.
and
Yes, Your
see
Honor.
what they said when they dispensed the money. It may give you a way around this.
Okay. Okay. I see what you. Thank you, Your Honor. And then I was just referring to Section 3 of this statute, which basically says $20,000, one moiety thereof to the United States, and other moiety to the use of any person or persons who shall sue for prosecute the same to the effect. In other words, it's almost like they're making us our own attorneys generals. It's that type of statute. And so when I saw that,
It looks like it's got prospects. I mean,
right, yeah,
it wouldn't
and
hurt to look into it.
and I'm working on it, Judge. And the thing is, I've gotten so much pushback. Like when I did this broadcast last January, when I talk about suing African nations, because I don't care who I sue, you right? I mean, like sometimes I'm driving down the street talking about I done sued them. I tell them I sued McDonald's, I've sued Burger King, I've sued them all. I want
Good for it.
I want to make my clients whole. That's my sole purpose. But I don't want to play politics. And what I find, Your Honor, is that there are a lot of people who say they want reparations, they say they want relief, but then they don't want me to do what I have to do. And that's when I refer to the rules of professional
Well,
responsibility
well,
that says you got a right to pick the goal, but I got a right to figure out how we can get there within the confounds of the law. And so, but
welcome
they
to
don't,
the
I don't,
club.
it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Welcome to the club. And I tell you, we're going to get some more enemies. This
Yeah.
damn nasty ass movie, The Woman King.
Oh, yeah.
It's historically accurate in terms of the people, some of the people.
Yeah.
But the homie from the 1700s up until the end of the 1800s, from the
Right.
late 1600s to the 800s,
Yes, Your Honor.
the homie was getting whipped up on and was paying tribute to the Yoruba in Nigeria, their northern neighbors. There were three brothers who were royalty, and they formed strong additions of the tribe. They came together as the Dahamians.
Mhm.
And what the king came up with was an interesting ploy to keep from getting overthrown. He'd get money that was paid to them by the Europeans, and it was subsidized as a conduit for slaves.
Mhm.
And he would enrich the Dahamian royalty or nobility, but he would keep them free from threat by making commoners the administrators in his government, and also coming up with a unique thing. They would have men who were the administrators. They had warriors to go out and do the capturing, and they had
Mhm.
war chiefs. But for each male, he would have a female counterpart that he kept under his thumb in the royal court.
Mhm.
So they weren't women queens, even. What they
Right.
were is part of a scheme he came up with to keep the men in check by having a woman that could veto what they were doing, and he encouraged the vetoes. He had a small unit of Amazon warriors, but no, he was not run by a queen. He had
Right.
queens.
Yeah.
And no, there wasn't this royal army of Amazons. There was a unit, and that was just part of his scheme of let's offset what the men might do so I can be safe on my throne by giving a woman counterpart in each instance a veto over anything the men did. And meanwhile, that woman is sitting at my court where I can go play with her curves and swerves.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
That's
want to. I don't want to
but that's
hold you here.
the
Oh, I'm
thing
sorry.
where you're going to get into it, because when you get into that, going back to sue the African origin, somebody's going to, oh my God, they want to go back and sue these beautiful black women
Right,
on a
man.
pretext. See, that's what you're going to get because there's a lot of ignorance out there. The
Yeah.
equivalent, if
Mhm.
anybody wants a harsh equivalent of what they're celebrating with this movie, is like, let's supposing some Jewish women decided to celebrate a Nazi Frau Kapitan
Right.
who was in the Gestapo and rounded up a bunch of Jews and homosexuals and gypsies and Slavs and sent them to extermination camps. That's
Mhm.
the equivalent. So that's what they've got us doing, and that's the
And that's
reason
sick, Your
we
Honor. That's
come to.
just
It is sick.
yeah. And like those of us who even know a moniker of history, we recognize that. Like I've been telling people for years, our African brothers, they weren't totally innocent. They were doing it for profit. You can't
Mm-mm.
say the history books show, even though we been keeping it like an open secret, at least amongst the folks who know. But my thing is, like I said, I know we got a lot of African brothers and sisters here. Don't take it personal. But if my client needs to be made whole, I'm gonna sue you. That's it. And so it's not anything you should take. It's not an emotional decision that I'm making as attorney. And I know the judge, you've sat up on the bench many a day. It might be a client, it might be a person before you actually liked. You liked them, but they did something and the law says this. And without law, we have no structure in society and it breaks down. And so if you have a people who were stolen from their land and the people who helped steal them were their own people, then everybody needs to pay. But Judge, I don't want to hold you past too
Well,
much time. But
hey,
go ahead.
it's
Go
been
ahead.
a pleasure, young man. What is it? It's been an hour about. I'm looking
Yeah,
at the clock up
I
here
got
at the top.
I got one more question. I just want to, and this has been a hot topic on my page. I don't want to hold you too much longer. It has to do with police reform. Okay. I am not one of these people that says defund the police. I don't believe that. I don't even think police need more training because we don't have to train them not to shoot white folks. So that means use that same training in which you don't shoot white folks, not to shoot black folks. But here's
Well,
the thing. Here's the thing.
I
And I
have a
know.
plan for that. You know, I'm running for Memphis mayor next year. So that's
Oh,
JB 23 for mayor of Memphis, Tennessee. Send Brown downtown and take back your town. Now, one of my campaign planks is police reform. First
right.
off, we need to get rid of civilian review boards because they're useless. What we
Okay.
need is a total revision of the American police model so we make it civilian controlled like the Pentagon is. You've got the President of the United States, who is a civilian, as commander in chief. You've got a civilian Secretary of Defense, a civilian subsecretary of Army, Navy, Air
Mhm.
Force, et cetera, et cetera. See, we need a director under the mayor who will operate the department, but he's a civilian. He's not a civil service cop.
Mm-hmm.
You have a director of uniform patrol, sex crimes, traffic, burglary, homicide, juvenile. So essentially, you have civilians running the police department. Now, those civilians might be people who once were cops or retired first responders or veterans or good citizens with administrative skills and backbone.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some things we can do with that. And one of the other things is I particularly like this one. Courts have become priced out of the reach of most people, but courts are there to cut down on interpersonal violence through self-help by allowing resolution through public tribunals. Now, we can have binding contractual arbitration under the U.S. Arbitration Act of 1928. So I'm proposing a situation here in Memphis where the city sponsors arbitration tribunals where licensed attorneys are not permitted to practice because they ramp the price up. They don't want this anyway because most of the people are judgment proof. They just want somebody to say you win or you lose. And we can have arbitration proceedings, and that would cut down interpersonal violence. We need to start doing stuff about taking these police sub precincts.
I got something for you.
Yeah.
I got, because I know Dr. Tia Johnson. I believe he's been on your broadcast a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a 14-point blackmail political agenda. And if we go down here to police reform, there are some things, and I'm still working with him on it. But here's my suggestion, and we've been talking about this. When you look at Terry versus Ohio, that case, that's the door that opens the door for the cops to go address anybody, right? Reasonable, you know the standard. I don't want to, but
Yeah.
it's the below the standard of probable cause. So it gives them the opportunity to go talk. If we can get that dealt with legislatively, that will cut down on the police contact. Here's the other one, because I'm tired of paying for cops who do stupid things as a taxpayer. The cops need to take out their own insurance bonds. Guess what? The insurance company loves it. The cops pay for their own, and now you got basically a third party investigating whether or not this particular employee is going to be a liability or not. But now it goes out of the taxpayers no longer have to pay for that. He needs $1 million policy. Let him pay $300 or $400 a month for it. And then if he messes up, then go talk to his insurance carrier. So those are two of the ideas that I have in mind that I've been talking to Dr. Tia Johnson about.
Well, I already am aware of that.
Okay.
Used to have reserve and special deputy sheriffs, and they had to get their own insurance.
Yeah.
10 years ago, but we're talking something different. And I saw something 2 nights ago that exemplified where the problem was.
Okay.
Well, not where the problem is, but a big problem. We're dealing with human beings, and some of them are more or less gregarious, and some of them are more or less introverted, and some deal with people better than others, and some have the wrong reasons for wanting to be cops. But I've got another idea.
What you got, Your Honor?
I'm going to take the Second Amendment. That thing about the militia, well-regulated militia being necessary for the common defense of the right. Well, the mayor in Tennessee, mayors are entitled to declare a militia. So we need a community-based militia. We'll have retired first responders, veterans, good citizens who don't mind going to drill or whatever you want to call it. They have proficiency in the law and whatever else. They will be a formal, organized militia, and they will supplement the police patrols, and they will allow the citizenry to actually have a personal stake in restoring law and order. So that, in the experience that I've had with it and the way I worked it out, will put a whole different flavor on what happens with law and order in the various communities
Okay.
because they will be part of it. Now, here's the other thing, a truth I've discovered. The thing about police is they are a 1-1 correlation with the political realities. If you are politically important, the police respect that. If you're not, they don't respect you. And one other thing, too, there is an unfortunate development in American criminal justice. And this has taken place over decades. Nobody planned it. It just morphed that way. And that is that the criminal justice system is no longer primarily concerned with the prevention of crime. What it is about is controlling surplus labor. If I could explain that very briefly, labor is a commodity like wheat, corn, cotton, rye, beef, pork, poultry, soy, whatever it may be. And when you've got a commodity glut, you have a problem. Now, our commodity glut is we have too many laborers for the labor market. So what do you do with them? Well, every other country in the world that is industrial has a plan where the government does something about redeeming a typical worker from obsolescence as a result of industrial technology and computerization. We don't. We say leave it to private enterprise, and that's not private enterprise type business because it's charity and they make nothing out of it. So what do we do when we get this commodity glut? Too many labor units. Well, if you're talking about soy, you store the surplus. We put our surplus in a jail cell instead of a grain silo. You subsidize the farmer so he does not grow soy. We subsidize the would-be laborer by providing a government assistance check. The farmer does not grow soybeans, he cuts back production. Well, we cut back production because we put the wrong thing in the heads of the youth, so they ideate upon dysfunction. They drop out, bang out, drug out, get knocked up too early, too often, too many times. They don't have vocational skills. They don't have academic proficiency. They have wrong behavioral patterns. They have no home training, so they make where they live islands of chaos, so they cannot engage in concerted, cohesive political activity for community self-help. And they soon get the felony convictions, which renders them even more unemployable. And what's behind it if you don't? You get some pissed off reincarnations of Timothy McVeigh who will take $250 of fertilizer and blow up a courthouse in another Oklahoma city. So since we are safe, we just kill each other and we don't go deal with that kind of draconian reaction. We have a pipeline between the schoolhouse and the jailhouse. And the thing of it is a lot of times we make it easy on ourselves. Now, I don't know how much criminal law you've got, but
I tried 3 cases with my father, 3 acquittals, 1 in Dallas, 2 in Houston. Got them all,
good.
but that was it.
I
That
had
was it.
and often, man, what do you mean they picked on you? Lloyd Brown, man, they was picking on us, man. And we wasn't doing nothing but playing our music. Yeah,
Right.
they complained. The neighborhood was complaining about they could hear your music from 3 blocks away. They didn't want you to share it with. Yeah, man, but see, they just wrong, man. Well, look, the 4 of you are riding deep at 3 o'clock in the morning. One take the lights out. Your registration is 2-3 months out of date. What the hell you think you did? And you playing loud music and you were waking people up because you kept driving around trying to, I'm going to make them pay attention to me. No, see, they jacked you up because people didn't want to do that. So,
you know, there's so many more questions I want to ask you because again, we don't get a chance to talk to folks like you, people who are wise, who've experienced the world, who there's so much. Like, I want to ask you, what do you think about the uptick in the rise of Black women being arrested and the violence and all the stuff. I want there's so much, but Judge, I don't want you to, because I know it's
But
been an
let me
hour.
say this.
Yeah.
We have a new problem. It's called the rise of the girl-rilla.
Okay, the rise of the girl-rilla. Somebody type rise of the girl-rilla in the chat room. Oh my God.
Here
Let's
it
hear
is.
it.
Used to be, man, blah, 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 blah. Hey, man, somebody bomber just walked in. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't see you come in. Hey, man, lady just walked in. Oh, man, let's chill.
Yeah.
When the female walks in, is cussing louder and acting a worse heathen than anybody up in the place, that kind of goes out the window. So we see the girl-rillas out there trying to act like heathens instead of future mothers. Well, hell, they're already mamas at 12 and 13.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And by the way, that N-word, see, when I got to Memphis, it's back in the 70s, and I wound up being the public defender. I had about 120 folk under me. Most all of them were white, and they were afraid to go out and talk to the Black defendants and witnesses. So I'd go out and do it. So I walk into the kitchen in the project, and 8 or 9 girls in there, 12 through 19. The 19-year-old is the client. And every one of them from 12 to 19 has some of the very smelly, smelly kids that are running around with snot dried all over their faces, dried food, haven't had a bath, got crap all over their behinds that need to be washed off, and they're using the N-word freely. Little N, give me my cigarettes, you little MF, blah, blah, blah. You like it, no good dog-ass daddy. Or get me a beer out the fridge, little MF, blah, 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 little in this, in that, little picking it. So why you talk to your children like that? Because they ain't worth a damn.
Judge, how do I convince these? Okay, so that was back then.
But see, here's the way it's working. Remember, some of these 12-year-old girls in that kitchen have children in there too. Their mothers starting at 10 and 11 years old. But now, let's say it's 1976, and you have a 6, 7-year-old kid, 1986, he's now 17. 1996, he's now 26, 27. 2006, he's 36, 37. 2016, he's 47 years old. And now he'll soon be 50. Meanwhile, he's got a whole bunch of kids. So you've got the original matriarch who's 17 sitting in that kitchen calling them the N-word and all this other stuff. So now that 17-year-old has children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, great-great-great-grandchildren. And now there's a 6th generation, and she's still alive, breathing air, and doing well.
So how do I get these dudes, these brothers, to date these girl-rillas? Like
you don't just don't have sex with them.
I mean, but but Judge, like if we want the Black race to go forward,
but you go find one of these college-educated women. You go find a woman that is mannerable, has home training, and will be a good wife. And here's the other thing, guys, it's wide open for you, because remember, there are only 32% of you versus 68% who have those undergrad degrees. There's only 36% of you versus 64% who got those graduate degrees. You own the shop. Hell, they'd be willing to share you. They're reinstating or re-legitimizing polygamy, because if they want some man on their same level, there aren't enough to go around.
What about
So,
the brothers who are flying overseas and getting African women,
well,
Caribbean
I mean,
women?
they may do it, but the point is you
Uh-huh.
want a healthy society.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
now what you do is I'd make a suggestion. Don't deal with a tackhead. That's a heartache and a headache and everything else going. Get one of the good women. And
Yeah.
another thing, the pretty ones are easier to deal with than the ones that aren't because everybody's scared of them. And when they do open their mouth, they try to run game. Hey, Slick Red, what's happening, baby? You so looking good.
Now,
Well,
now, now
that
see the
if you did, you stanky old woman, I don't want to talk to you. No way.
now see the thing, Judge. I know something that they don't know. I saw the women that y'all had at UCLA back in the 60s and the 70s. I saw those. I saw the photographs. I saw the type of women that they were slender, they were fit, they were beautiful, they had real hair. We don't have that these days, Your Honor. Like we got, you call them gorillas,
Girl,
girls. We don't have what y'all had. Like this is a whole new different generation. The ones that's cute, they got a whole, they might as well have worked in a brothel. They got so many bodies on them. It's like we can't turn that into a wife. And then
well,
they
yeah,
got the
you can't. Well,
tattoos
the
and they,
point is
yeah,
there are fewer men than there are women on any given level.
yeah.
So be selective. You now in 2022 had a value a beautiful woman used to have back in the 1960s.
Right.
Now, don't screw the girl rillas. That is nothing but headache.
The gorillas. Man, the thing is, and this is my last question because I'm not holding you here past this. So I want you to talk to these YouTubers because we got some irresponsible YouTubers. They don't realize how powerful their voice is. You had one get on the internet the other day, and she's known for saying abort black male babies, just crazy as a bag of wet cats. And it's like these folks don't realize how powerful their voice is. I don't think they realize how powerful their voice was until Kevin Samuels recently passed away. And then we come to find out the whole world knew who this guy was, and he was just a YouTuber. And so I
Well,
want these.
say this about YouTube. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook shadow block and suppress.
Mhm.
I was on with Kwame Brown. We did
Right.
an interview and we got up to 9.5 million likes. Okay. Then
Wow.
they knocked it down to 8. Then they knocked it down to 6. Then they knocked it down to 5. Then it dropped down to 1.5 million. But you see, all these people saw it, but they don't want you to know that.
Mhm.
Yours truly didn't have the number 2 high rated judge show. He had the number 2 high rated syndicated show, period, in the
Wow.
United States. I beat Oprah every week, Phil every day,
What?
and stepped on Judy's feet. And we all worked for the same 4-unit special unit with CBS syndication.
Yeah.
They didn't mention me because they didn't want me to be the spokesperson. Now, what they did is the corporate newsletter always said I was their highest earning show.
Mhm.
In fact, I got a lot of grief that I had to go deal with because they were stealing money from my show to finance Tom Cruise movies or leverage
What?
them out. So, I
Oh
mean,
man.
the other thing, by the way, if you want to find out what's really going on, since you deal with this kind of civil law, if you've got them as a party defendant, or if you're representing somebody that's working with them, like a union or something like that,
Mhm.
buy a couple of shares of stock so you get the corporate newsletter.
Yes,
Now,
Your
if
Honor.
you can lie to the people that they send the newsletter to, which gets them some federal time, or they can lie to the people that don't get the letter sent to them, and they usually take that one. So read what's really going on when you get the corporate newsletter.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very
What,
interesting.
what do you just some advice to the people who are now using their voice on the internet? I would wish they would be more responsible.
Yeah, they should be,
What
because a lot of people
just
listen
talk to
to
them.
you and
Yeah.
see too many folk are into this thing about hustling.
Mhm.
Yeah, man, it's all about the money. or they can be real nice about it. It's all about the money, you know.
Right.
Like, who cares? It ain't my problem. I do what I want to do. No, you don't. That's not manly. But anyway, see, you're right. There's some irresponsible people and there's some crazy things put out there. Are you into the one? Have you heard the one about the space aliens landed 250,000 years ago, took the black folk out of Africa, took them over to America, established them over here, and there was no slave trade. But what really happened was
Oh, okay.
when they invented steamboats, the white folk from Europe picked up some Indians from the Indus River Valley, and
I
they
mean,
brought them
Judge,
over
I've
here. And
heard
all us
so many quacky,
black folk
crazy
did
theories.
like,
Yeah, I
man,
mean, we have legal documents and treaties and DNA tests. The same DNA test to prove that that baby belongs to you or don't belong to you. That can point out where you came from. So for those people, and let me say this for you people who are stupid enough, don't ever let me be a judge because they're gonna get like you got to get this guy. For those of you who are stupid enough not to believe the evidence that is in your face, then you deserve to be led down the wrong path. Just go ahead and be an idiot and go down that path. I've heard the crazies, but go ahead, Your Honor.
and see, you know what's going on is people try to redeem their self-esteem. So what happens
There it
is
is.
they
Yeah.
create myths. That's like Kamala Harris
Mm-hmm.
being black. No, I met her father.
Mm-hmm.
Good Hindu. And the other thing is guess what else she is? Anthropologically, she's an Indo-Aryan. When Adolf Hitler and the Nazis were talking about Aryan supermen, and we have the Aryan Brotherhood and
Yeah.
the Aryan Nation. That's what they were really talking about. They aren't blonde, blue-eyed. They are swarthy with dark hair and dark eyes. Kamala Harris is a great exemplar.
Yeah.
So we are so deep into we want to have something we can hold our heads up over that we
Yeah.
seize on her as a sister girl. And then since we're talking black and everybody that's listening generally had pursued higher education, the AKAs, Alpha, Kappa, Alpha, and my dear mother got made in 1934 on a line at Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee.
Mhm.
She's an ivy behind the wall, so I don't say it with disrespect. I'm an
Mhm.
Alpha Phi Alpha.
06.
06, black
Yes,
and
sir.
gold, save my soul. But here's the other thing. She's not the first black Greek vice president of the United States. The first one was an acknowledged white boy, tall, bald-headed white
Mhm.
boy from Minnesota known as Hubert Humphrey, LBJ
Right.
vice president and the Democratic Party candidate for president when he lost out to Tricky Dick in 1968.
Right.
No, he was an alpha. He got made in Minnesota back in the 30s.
Right.
So, again, in the grad chapter in the 40s. So, you didn't get it. So, don't get all happy about it. And he didn't try to hide that he was a white boy.
Right.
So, I mean, come on now. This self esteem thing that falls into the pimp game.
Preach it.
I represented a lot of pimps and hoes 40 some years ago and got a lot of rent paid and car notes paid, apartment
Uh,
note paid, all this.
yeah.
But let me tell you how pimps work. Pimps can't turn a chick out, but they can find one that the preacher and her mama and grandmama turned out. Aunts too. See, the way the pimps work is they find somebody who has low self esteem. They don't know how to articulate it, but people like to be accepted as they perceive themselves. So the woman thinks she's trash. She's not worth anything. She
Mhm.
thinks she's ugly. She thinks she's stupid, even though she might be physically beautiful. And one hoe I represented wound up getting a PhD, and she's now a clinical psychologist, but she was a stripper and a hoe, and she had one of the lowest pimps you can find who was a client. This is way back when. Now, as we worked it out, people like to be accepted as they perceive themselves. And when the pimp called her dumb, stupid, and ugly, she perceived herself that way. So she was convinced he was accepting her as she was. When the preacher called her grandmama, all her aunts and her mama, no good, low down sinners, etc., they perceived that they were, but he showed them some love. And just like hoe number two gets to walk in on the pimp's arm and sit in front of the Cadillac when she sells $5 more nookie than his bottom hoe does on a given night. She sold 2 slices of cake more than somebody else, so she got stood up on the in the pulpit and recognized. And the hoes give the pimps all of their money all the time, but then mama and grandmama and aunties, they got her acclimated to giving away their last dime when the preacher begged them 8 times every Sunday service and at least twice a night on all of the choir meetings and Bible study and everything they went to. So what they do for putting this negativism in people's heads, that makes it easy to exploit, and people do the dog whistle response to anything gives them a status. Now, that's what we are getting. We are getting from the YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter hustlers game that relies upon some of us having low self-esteem, being
Yes.
very needful of a positive image. But see, you don't want just any positive image.
Right.
You want one that motivates you to do right. And if the motivation is a lie, that's not good either, because the lie can be exposed and you'll get demoralized.
Right.
The best motivating factor I found to reduce that 80% down to 18% was manhood or womanhood. So every day that individual would look in the mirror and say, did you do what you were supposed to do yesterday? You're going to do it today, or you're preparing so you can do it tomorrow. And that means no matter how bad it gets, they have a purpose that motivates them. And the worse it gets, the more chance they have of becoming a hero. So instead of, yo, I ain't gonna live to be 24, Judge, I'm gonna die, I'm just 22, I'm gonna die in the next 2 years, somebody gonna kill me. Well, what happens is you get an opportunity to be a hero if you don't mind dying, because if you got the man thing in your heart, even if you don't see the daylight at the end of the tunnel, there are all these people that you're obligated to, where you have to slay the fire-breathing Gila monsters that are setting fire to the tunnel so nobody can see for the smoke. You got to go kill them off. That's your job. So the worse it gets, the more cause you have. If you don't have that manhood in you, then you running around feeling like you might as well be dead.
Amen. Judge, I don't want to look, we are 1 hour and 30 minutes in. I'm not trying to hold you all night, but look, you dropped so much. We're gonna be dissecting this for the rest of the week. But I want y'all to really hear.
I've got to go. This has been Judge Joe. Call me when you can, since I'm the one that ran.
Amen.
Now, here's the other thing. JJB BBQ, Judge Joe Brown Barbecue.
Judge Joe Brown Barbecue. All right, JJB BBQ. All right.
JJBBBQ.com. Go there and order yourself some. Most people who tasted it say it's the best they've ever had. We've got a full range of products. It's Black Enterprise, and show I'm not prejudiced. Chicken links, smoked and raw and hot, mild, whatever.
Give a shout out to my people down in Australia. For some reason, truck drivers in Australia love this broadcast. We can get you some JJB barbecue down there in Australia too.
I'm gonna give them a shout out, but I was gonna give the sisters one.
Okay.
Meat packing entity that does the links is the only Black female run meat packing plant that's USDA certified in California. And down there, Mike, you need to get some of my sauce here to put on the barbie, because it's real good, Mike. You can turn yourself out there.
All right.
Real inspirational, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Judge Brown. What else can we do to help you with your I know you got the mayoral campaign coming up. Anything else we can do for you? We got plenty. I got 50,000 followers now. And the difference between my followers and subscribers and everybody else, mine are virulent. They're dedicated. This is not just a bunch of people who 90% men on my page. We want to help Joe Brown. What do we need to do, Your Honor?
Okay, we just set up our campaign treasury. We filed the paperwork today, as a matter of fact. So you will be hearing from us. You can find me at Judge Joe Brown TV on Twitter. I do not have a blue check, and there are others, so it's at Judge Joe Brown TV, and we will let you know what you can do to assist us in raising funds so we can take this race and make Memphis the mecca for the black folk, good folk, white folk, black folk, yellow folk in America, because it's the transportation hub of the continent, and that ought to be the biggest city in America, and we can turn it that way. So let's do what we have to do. So I'm out.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you so much. It's been great. It's been an honor having you again. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. We'll be right back with this broadcast. That has been real. Shout out to Judge Joe Brown. We'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Spurling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds.
Hey, I'm about to show you something. Get enough?
All right, welcome back. The link is in the chat room, man. I know we need to debrief after that. That was there's so much information in there to dissect. But anyway, the link is in the chat room. I want to give a shout out to my folks from Oakland. I got my 305s up in here, my 860s. I got the 415. That's what's happening. We got Memphis in the house, man. We know that. Memphis is deep up in here. Who else we got up in here, man? Let's see what else we got. We got Oaktown. I think I said in New Jersey, Columbus. I always try to do my roll call, man. But here's the thing I want y'all to understand. That idea that I told you guys about, the reparations idea, you heard what Judge Joe Brown said? That could be a good idea. Go with it. Now, that man's been practicing law longer than I've been alive, and he's saying that's a good idea. On top of that, he said he's investigated and knew the statute well enough to know what it says, and that's why I pointed out to him, if you go down to Section 3, it talks about what? It talks about individuals can bring these claims. You see what I'm saying? So here's my thing, folks. You know, you might not believe me because I'm just, this young dude this young handsome man on the internet. He got that fresh haircut. So I'm feeling myself today, man. I mean, look at that. Look at that line, baby. It's clean. But there's some brilliant people on YouTube, and you have to understand you got to distinguish between those who are just bumping their gums and those who are giving you real information. Judge Joe Brown wouldn't be on here if my reputation wasn't already validated. You understand what I'm saying? Not only does he, this is like the mafia or something. He knows my father. You see what I'm saying? Like, these are people you trust. These are people who've been validated. I'm not just some dude hiding behind some dark screen talking to you all. I'm putting this $250,000 higher education, two law schools to work, and I'm putting it out there. I appreciate the judge telling me to go ahead and fight. You see what I mean? Hey, you know what? Just go ahead and try some of these cases, man. I appreciate the judge telling me. That was the same thing that my father told me. Hey, go ahead and just fight it out with him sometimes. And I appreciate that. If you guys appreciate what Judge Joe Brown said, man, type Judge Joe Brown in the chat room. Let me hear y'all say that. Judge Joe Brown. I got time to take a couple of people, man. I'd like to hear what a few of you all have to say. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, here's the thing you got to understand. This week is going to be hard hitting. I got a lot of folks just like Joe Brown coming in this week, some hard hitting people who are going to come in, and we're going to have some great conversations. That said, man, y'all make sure y'all show your appreciation. Make sure you get the notices by subscribing to the channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel by now, I mean, we need to get everybody who's subscribed to go ahead and resubscribe to the channel, and also hit the thumbs up button, because as you see, this video has been demonetized already, I believe, just because of the topics that we discussed. And so I need you guys to make sure y'all hit the thumbs up button. Make sure y'all hit the #1 button. I got time to bring a couple people in. Douglas, man, brother, you becoming a regular. How you doing today, sir? Hey, man, you how do you follow and act like that, man? You in the aftermath of Judge Joe Brown. I grew up watching him. Just to be able to sit and talk to him and have that conversation with him. What are your initial thoughts, man? Go ahead.
I think that we should all appreciate the wisdom that he took the time to give us, because a lot of elders haven't put in the work as he has and as you have, and then sit down and take the time to instill their knowledge still into the generations behind them. So I think that's a sign of a man that we all should aspire to be.
Now, see, he's an elder. I'm just a dude. Okay, I'm just uncle. I'm your mama's baby brother. I ain't got to the elder status yet. I got to keep living. You see what I mean? But that's an elder. And see, the thing is, man, anybody telling you that we shouldn't listen to our elders, they're foolish. Because see, an elder person, that's like a library. And when they die, it's like burning down a library. So you need to listen to that wisdom. And when you find yourself mimicking or thinking the same things that those people who are 70 and 80 years old are thinking, that means you're on the right path. You see what I mean? When you find an older man like that who's lived his life and who's calm and who's successful and has that wisdom and will take the time to sit and talk to you, that means a lot, man. You know what I mean? And like, I respect the elders. That's an African tradition. You know, like I tell you, we're not the African people we were 500 years ago, but we're still an African people. And the one thing Africans do is we have great reverence and respect for our elders, because we know that's where the wisdom is and that's where the wisdom lies. So, you know, it's just an honor to have him here. Alvin, man, unmute yourself, man. I need you to be doing interviews like that, bro. I need you to go ahead, call up some of these, you know, come on down. Come on, I need you to come on down. Judge Mathis, I need you to come on down and do the interview. But what are your thoughts? Do you hear what he said about my reparations argument? He liked it, apparently.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he really did keep drilling down, you know, the masculinity and tying it all together. He has such a great way of being able to being relatable, you know, and doesn't talk over everyone's head. And he had lots of points. And I swear he doesn't. There's very few people that can land a plane like he can.
Yeah, right. Nice and smooth. You're like, oh damn,
because he doesn't talk that fast, right?
Yeah,
so he doesn't. So you're like, okay, I see where you're going. I see where you're going, and then he'll be like, bang,
yeah,
and you're like, that's what I was. Absolutely,
yeah. 5 minutes of pimp talk, man.
Yes.
Basically, what he said. All you folks out there talking about aliens brought us over, and we Indians and. These people, basically what he was saying, y'all getting pimped. They know you got low self-esteem and you'll believe anything because you don't really think that much of yourself. You're ashamed of the fact that your people were enslaved. And so, you falling for the okie doke. I get it. It's no different than when folks' relatives was raped and they say, oh, no, baby, you part Indian. Even though your grandma was RAPD'd and you got that long hair, oh, no, baby, your hair is long and straight because you part Indian. Indians ain't had no part of you. They feeding on your low self-esteem. All y'all who filing for these wacky theories that are easily debunked. I mean, you could debunk this. You can go look for your goddamn self.
Yeah.
You say you just look, but it ain't nothing. Bro, I'm not here to lead the stupid.
No.
Like I'm gonna tell you, I think y'all figured that out by now. I'm not here to try to change the mind of stupid people. If you want to believe that, you go right on it. If you can't distinguish between the truth and a lie when it's heard, that means you don't have good discernment, and you need to figure out what's going on the inside of you first. Why your connection with the Most High is not intact, because all wisdom comes from God, and the first thing that you learn from God is good discernment. Even a baby know who's evil and who's not. That's why when babies look at them, they start crying. Even little cats and dogs. When you start seeing cats and dogs running away from people, that's the first thing you learn. Good discernment. So that means you got something corrupt on your inside, because the Lord is not even able to talk to you to give you good discernment, so you can then begin to be wise by listening to wise people. That's all I'm saying, man. But go ahead, Alvin, and we're gonna go to Douglas. Hey, you know what, man? Y'all been light tonight. Y'all need to go ahead. Judge. The judge was cooking with gas. You understand what I'm talking about? I need y'all to go ahead and put some on the gas money. We're gonna have a hard. This is gonna be Uncle D had a couple of days off. I'm refreshed. I got this fresh. Look at my haircut, man.
I saw that.
Look, do y'all see that, baby?
You got a little product in there too.
I got the little cuts in the beard and everything, man. Look at me, baby. Well, hey, hold on a minute, Playboy. I'm just riding, hitting switch. Go ahead, Brother Douglas, man. What else you got to say, man?
Yeah, I think the Most High made a black man in his likeness. That anything that our society tell us we not, that just basically a lie. I think that our brothers should look inside of their soul and start reflecting the light that God put into you, and quit letting your society destroy the light that's inside of you.
Yeah, we not Indians and we not aliens, y'all. I thought that was like a first grade conversation. I thought we got that understood already. We not Indians, we not aliens. We ain't been here. It was some Asians, some Indians with big ass noses. So them heads down there in Central America, it's some big ass, it's some Asian looking Indians with big ass noses too. They still there, as a matter of fact. Once you get past the mestizos and you go to them little ones selling them flowers, it's about that tall on the side of the street. Those are Indians right there. Go to Colombia, go to Honduras. They're still there. Okay, you can look at them. But anyway, Alvin, what else you want to add to this thing, man? Y'all get the likes up, baby. Go ahead.
No, he's just he's got such a. I mean, there's so many things, right? From Kennedy all the way up to current day, and I mean, and he has intimate
shootout with the FBI.
I mean,
hold on a minute.
Well, see, here's the thing, Uncle D. There was, the idea that people would come and knocking and they would shoot up your house was a real thing. Like we touched on it the other day, that the church was the only place where we could group up and meet. That was the only place we could go. They would shoot up your house otherwise. Like they assassinate young black men. Like those guys, even all the way down into in Ferguson, those guys that were that started BLM before BLM was BLM. Those guys are no longer with us.
Yeah, good point.
I think like the judge said, like when he said that if he was become a mayor, like a mayor will have the power to appoint a militia, that we need a militia to protect our leaders. Our black leaders need to be protected at all costs.
Yeah.
And so that they can't be assassinated for standing up for their people.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Now, he broke some news. We got a new YouTube we got a new YouTube phrase. It's called Rise of the Girl-rilla. Okay, you heard that first here on Dennis Spurling Unfiltered, out of the esteemed mind and speaking vocabulary of the Honorable Judge Joe Brown. Rise of the Gorilla. And it's like, I'm thinking he don't know. I'm thinking he don't know that these women acting bad out here. No, he clearly sees it. Rise of the Gorilla. The Gorilla. That was so, it caught me off guard because he was talking real smooth, blah, blah, blah. What you have is the rise of the Gorilla. I'm like, what the hell? Why couldn't I think of that? I wouldn't say it. I would be afraid to say that. But the judge said it. So I'm gonna just put it out there. We're gonna talk about that. Y'all use that hashtag Girlrilla. Everybody in the chat room. Hashtag Girlrilla. It's one word. Go ahead and get that in. Hashtag Girlrilla. Chef Mike, what you think about this, man? We got famous people over here, man. What are your thoughts?
Man, first, good night, good evening, peace to everybody. That was the conversation with your grandfather that we have been missing. I was raised by my grandfather. I was raised by my grandparents. Now listen, I have been married. I'm 47 years old. I've been married to the same woman for 24 years. All right. When he talk about putting in work and what it really requires to form a community and the importance of the nuclear family, my wife and I, we're sitting here and we're watching and we're listening and we're just going through. Yes, this is what we need to hear. This is what you hear from folks who have been there and done that. This was that conversation from your grandfather that you needed to hear tonight. I'm telling you. And hey, Uncle D, you know what? You are the man for that one. Yeah. You are the man for that one, for real.
Well, you know, I mean, I have, first of all, I got great respect for the man. And then the fact that he's a well-known judge and a real judge, not a fake judge, because you got a lot of people out there who are, they're not really judges. You know what I mean? But I love talking to him. I mean, it's an honor and a pleasure. I told him before he came on, man, I'm not going to be starstruck like I was the first time. You see what I mean? Because, I mean, that you talking to somebody like that everybody knows. Can you imagine what it's like to be on TV 10 years straight and not have a flub or a flop or something like that, to go like that every day? You got to be, that's the dedication, and still be doing it at 70-something years old. That's real, man. That's real. But Mike, go ahead. What else you got to say, man? I ain't gonna have y'all here all night, man. But go ahead, bro.
No, that was just it. If the replay value of that is beyond, you know, beyond anything that we can really comprehend right now. That itself, you can play that back for your sons, my sons, their sons, your daughters, my daughters, their daughters. You can play that back for everybody, because that speaks to so many different things that we need to hear. We get a lot of times where we talk about, you know, the gorillas and how, you know, we're having our issues with the black woman, but we forget a lot of times, and rest in power, Kevin Samuel started off talking to the men, saying, look, we have to be the ones. And one of the things that the judge said was, look, when it comes time to do the dying, yeah, you can play around, get freaky in your bedroom all you want to, but when it comes time to dying, snatch him out the boat, throw him in the back, for real. And see, we have to have that kind of cutthroat attitude as men, because it takes that to protect something. And a lot of people
now, see, the thing is, I didn't get a chance to ask Judge all the follow, because man, an hour and 30 minutes, I didn't want to have him here all night. You know what I mean? But I was gonna ask him, should we be saving these gorillas too? he said don't date them, so I have to assume don't have nothing to do with them. So for somebody, and here's what I'm saying, for some of these masculine women, I would think even Judge Joe Brown, a true elder who ain't sold out after 72 years, who kept it real for 72 years, even he don't want y'all dating them. He said, don't date them. You can't save those masculine, manly women. What did he said you can't do it. They got 6 generations in now. And then when I said, well, what about the dudes dating overseas? Yeah, do that too. We just want a what? Successful society. So I see, you know, and the thing is, see, bro, you've been married to the same woman for over 20 years. 20 years ago, the women wasn't like the women they are now. See, the ones Alvin is running up on and Douglas is running up on, they wasn't like the ones back in the 90s and I'm gonna say the 90s and the early 2000s. Well, you and I about the same age. And the ones that the Judge Joe Brown had in the 60s, they would fit. Look, we could look at the pictures and see. So these brothers, they gotta do what they gotta do to find fit, feminine, beautiful women, even if it means traveling overseas. Even if they gotta pick, it's a few of them here in the United States, but they few and far between. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, literally. But anyway, Douglas, come on, give me what you got back up in here, and we're gonna get Alvin, and then we're gonna roll up out of here, man. What else you thought, bro? What are your final? We debriefing, man. We debriefing. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think planting your seed in a gorilla is just a mistake, because how many abortions have these women got without your permission behind your back? Because if a woman get an abortion, she don't really have to tell you anything. So how many of our kids been aborted because we were dealing with these gorillas? I personally had 2 children aborted that I especially begged these girls to have a child, but they decided not to, and still went on ahead and got the abortion. So we have to understand the kind of women in our community and what we need to do. We only need 2% of our community to put it back together and be family oriented and build a family base and let them be the elite, and then lead the rest of the community into the future. So I mean, we could do this if we had to go across seas to find wives to build this family oriented base within our community. Then that's what we need to do. Because like you said, we got women out here saying that they're gonna abort, black male fetuses. So we gotta take those kind of comments seriously.
Take that seriously. And then Alvin, man, you hear what I said, how they set ain't nobody believe they set Umar Johnson up. No matter what you say about the man, is still a masculine, manly man. You see what I mean? I don't see no punk in him like that. You know what I mean? And for them to set that man up like that, and then for the he-she to come back and say, oh yeah, I meant to do that, but it was a setup, man. They emasculated that. Y'all don't like me saying that? Nobody, because I got Umar Johnson fans saying, oh, they emasculated that man on national TV. They might as well put a dress on him and had old buddy kiss him in the mouth. And let me show you a picture of this cat without this sir. Without his ink on. But go ahead, bro. What are your thoughts? And you see the Judge Brown agreed,
Yeah. It's a concerted effort. I see rainbows everywhere I go. And it was not a joke. I mean, everywhere I go, every commercial I see, they are trying to pump a rainbow into my consciousness and make me perfectly okay with it. And again, I don't have any kids, so I can't imagine what it's like to send them out into the world with those kind of messages constantly being forced down their throat. But all I know is that it doesn't look good on the outside. To me, it doesn't look good on the outside. And like I said, we are indeed in the trick bag.
We're not paranoid for thinking something is going on. Like, we're not paranoid. Like, for a minute, it was like, it's a conspiracy. What are you talking about, conspiracy? We're not paranoid. We see something is, it's not. Go ahead, but I ain't mean to cut you off.
No, 100%. I mean, that Atlantic commercial, and again, our phones are listening to us. They know what we're going to do before we do it. They, and you have a conversation about a shoe and an ad's going to pop up in Instagram. That's just how it works. So they know what we're doing. They're pumping these messages directly into us. And again, people aren't curious to know how the system works. They don't understand why we're in the situation that we're in. And Judge Joe Brown touched on it, even going back to like those, the shipping records and so on and so forth. Like, this whole condition that we're in is deep. There is a business. He touched on it when talking about labor and how, again, the school to prison pipeline. And it's like, we're not creating corn. We're just going to have these dudes just sit here. That's part of the game. Like, that's the part that people are not paying attention. Oh, damn.
This is what old buddy look like without the makeup on, man. This is what old buddy look like. Come on, Dr. Umar Johnson.
I don't know. Man, hands bigger than mine. That's crazy.
That's what old buddy look like without the makeup on that they set up. That's jacked up, man. And we laughing at Dr. Umar Johnson, man, but that was effed up, man. It was really effed up. And trying to emasculate that man and embarrass him and shame him, and then to have old buddy come back on the internet afterwards and said, I tried to do it. You see what I mean? So,
well, that's another thing, man. That's the game they play. They like to, they do that. That's a thing that they do. They try to turn straight guys. They try to trick straight guys. That's why there's an abundance of those types of folks being injured in experience, because they try to trick dudes. They find it, dudes wake up one day and there's like, wait a minute, this ain't right. There's a college guy in Virginia that just barely beat a case, but it ruined his college career just recently.
Yeah. And so just so y'all know, man, this is when you got folks like Judge Joe Brown, lawyers who've been around, judges, TV, all of that. The man don't have a problem. He told you he worked in Hollywood. So he dealt with people who have that alternative lifestyle. He even said, you know, a lot of them don't like that, what's going on right now. So it's not a conspiracy. It's not all in your head. It's really an attack on masculinity, all men. And that's throughout the entire Western world. And for the white dudes that's following me right now, the Hispanic dudes that's following me right now, if they start with the black community, that just means we're the experiment. Okay, we're the lab rats. But as soon as they get the poison together, as soon as they get it right, they're gonna come in and try and hit y'all with that too, man. So be careful. You know, we just the first line of defense, because this is how it's always been. They'll pull it on us because, as Judge Joe Brown said, we don't have power. And until you begin to exercise that power, that's why I was telling y'all this. I'm not about to be sitting up here begging nobody for reparations for another generation. I'm not going to do it. I'm not built like that. I'm not begging nobody for nothing. I'm not praying on it. I'm not marching. I'm not going to even try to vote the whole thing into existence. My suggestion is we get really aggressive with these lawsuits. And if you really mean it, mean it. It don't matter to me what they label the money. It could be for a penalty. It could be for interest. I don't care. As long as you get it and you made whole. You see what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at, man. But in the meantime, look, I've enjoyed this conversation. I want y'all to hit hashtag Joe Brown, Judge Joe Brown in the chat room. Right? Make sure you go tell your friends. It's going to be a hard-hitting week. I can promise you all that we're going to have some great conversations. Just keep a lookout. I'm going to post another one up tomorrow. Okay? And, you know, you'll see. This is real. I mean, I meant what I said. I said what I meant. And, you know, we're going to keep pushing this issue with reparations and all these other things and the political. And y'all going to learn some history. We're going to make it fun. Again, I'm not Kevin Samuels. I do my own thing. But if you're going to be on this page, you're going to learn something. You know, I'm going to force feed you this knowledge. We build men on this page. All right. I give you bricks to help you build your character. And so I'm going to introduce you to masculine, manly men from which you can take characteristics for yourself. I got 3 sons, and I don't want my sons to grow up in this world and they be the only masculine men out there who say, hey, this is the line. You know how refreshing it is to be able to talk to somebody like Judge Joe Brown, who, you know, if we were to act like him, oh, you're a toxic masculinist. You see what I mean? But when we see Judge Joe Brown doing like, oh, yeah, that's what's up. You know, you like my dad. You know, my dad was raised on a Marine base. Yeah, you believe in discipline. Cool. It reinforces what you know is innate to your manhood and your masculinity. And it makes you feel comfortable moving forward because you got the elders doing it. But we don't get a chance to listen to elders like that. They hide them away from us. Thank God for YouTube. Thank God for this internet. Now, the thing is, you can use what we're doing for good and motivation, or you can use it for foolishness and evil. You could be on here talking bad about folk, or you can be on here trying to build people up. What I hope you guys do is realize that you have a powerful voice here on the internet. You have a powerful voice on YouTube, and it's an opportunity. And if you squander it, and if you mess it up, then somebody's going to come along and do it better than you. And they're going to take that voice away from you. That's what happened to hip hop. So if you don't want to see this YouTube, this black manosphere, these things go the same way that your hip hop went, which used to be the voice of my generation, then you're going to take care of it, man, because they will take it away from you. You will lose your audience. And next thing, it'll be some white dudes and white women sounding like Kevin Samuels. Oops, they are. You see what I mean? And instead of having Uncle D, you're going to have a white dude or Hispanic dude saying the same things I'm saying, building your masculinity up. You see, I'm just telling y'all. So heed the warning of Judge Joe Brown, man. Y'all be mindful of your boys. Treat each other with respect. be honest with each other. But other than that, man, this is Uncle D. I'm out, man.